Some people don't panic when their car dies on the side of the road. No phone call, no frustration. They just walk to the front, pop the hood, and stare. And if you watch their face closely, you won't see fear. You'll see something that looks almost like focus. Like they've been here before. Like they already know they're going to figure it out. That's not confidence you can learn from a book. That's something built differently. And today we're going to talk about exactly what that is. Most people look at someone who can diagnose a car problem and think it's about mechanical knowledge. They think these people just memorized more stuff, studied harder, watched more videos. But that's not what's actually happening. The real difference isn't in what they know. It's in how their brain was trained to think. And that training didn't happen in a classroom. It happened in a driveway, on a cold Saturday morning, with grease on their hands and a problem that refused to cooperate. Here's what actually happens when someone diagnoses an engine. They're not just listening to a sound. They're building an entire invisible picture in their mind. The knock at 2,000 revolutions per minute. The faint smell of something burning that isn't quite oil. The way the car hesitated just slightly when it was cold, but ran smooth once it warmed up. They're holding all of that at once, cross-referencing it against everything their hands have ever felt, everything their nose has ever recognized, everything their gut has ever told them. Neuroscientists call this embodied cognition. The knowledge isn't stored in words. It's stored in the body, in the hands, in the pattern recognition that only comes from physical experience. This is the first layer of psychological strength these people have built without even realizing it. But here's what most people miss. And this is where it gets interesting. Ask one of these people how they knew something was wrong, and they'll pause. They'll think for a second, and then say something like, "It just didn't feel right." And people laugh at that. They think it's vague. They think it means nothing. But that pause, that answer, that's not vagueness. That is a person trying to translate something that lives below the level of language into words. The knowledge is real. It's just stored somewhere that words can't easily reach. Psychologists call this tacit knowledge. And the people who have it don't always know how powerful it actually is. Now think about the environment where this skill gets built. It's never perfect. You're lying on your back under a car on a concrete floor. Something is leaking on you. The bolt you need is in the worst possible position. The manual says one thing, but the actual car in front of you is saying something completely different. And you have two choices. You walk away, or you stay with it. The people who learned to stay with it, they didn't just learn about cars. They trained their brain to trust itself under pressure. Every time they stayed with a problem that had no obvious answer, every time they figured it out with their own hands, they added one more layer to something psychologists call internal locus of control. The deep, unshakable belief that outcomes are determined by your own effort. Not luck. Not other people. You. Think about the garage memories for a second. For a lot of these people, it didn't start alone. It started with someone. A father who handed over a wrench without saying much. An uncle who pointed at the engine and waited. They didn't explain everything. They didn't do it for you. They stood there and let you struggle. And what was being passed down in that garage wasn't just mechanical knowledge. It was a relationship with difficulty, a way of being with a problem that didn't involve running from it. Psychologists call this social learning. But in that garage, it didn't feel like a theory. It felt like Saturday afternoon. It felt like belonging. It felt like the most important classroom you never knew you were sitting in. And here's the layer that almost nobody talks about. The garage isn't just where these people learned to fix cars. For many of them, the garage became something else entirely. When work was overwhelming. When relationships were complicated, when life felt like it was moving too fast and nothing made sense, they went back to the garage. Because the garage offered something the rest of the world couldn't. A problem with a real answer. A clear beginning and a clear end. You either fix it or you don't. There's no ambiguity. No politics. No opinion. Just reality giving you a straight answer. That's not a hobby. That's a coping mechanism. That's psychological regulation in its most honest form. This is what builds quiet confidence. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that needs an audience. The kind that sits in the chest, steady and warm, that says I have been in impossible situations before and I found my way through. That confidence doesn't come from being told you're capable. It comes from proving it to yourself in a cold driveway at 10 o'clock at night when nobody was watching. It comes from staying with the problem when everything in you wanted to walk away. It comes from figuring it out yourself. And now here's where this stops being about cars entirely. Because you have a hood-up moment in your own life right now. Maybe it's a relationship that keeps making the same noise, and you keep hoping it fixes itself. Maybe it's a career that smells like something burning, but you haven't stopped long enough to find out where it's coming from. Maybe it's something inside you that you've been waiting for the right person to come along and diagnose. But here's what working on cars actually teaches at its deepest level. The answer was never going to come from the outside. It was always going to require your hands, your attention, your willingness to stay with it long enough for it to reveal itself. The question isn't whether you know how to fix an engine. The question is, what broken thing in your life have you been standing in front of, waiting for someone else to figure out, when everything you need to fix it has been inside you all along? Stay with it. Figure it out yourself.